I'll now invite Dan Foley back to the stage to introduce our keynote.
Yeah, sure thing. Thanks, Jim. Well, thanks everybody. We're heading into the keynote discussion, and then we're gonna the Mayor Collins is gonna make a short announcement, and then we're gonna head over and get to enjoy Crooked Handle Brewing. I just wanted to, one thing I wanted to do before I introduce Scott, I wanted to ask all the Miami Conservancy District staff who are here just to stand up, if you can. Give them a round of applause. They've helped a lot. And also the committee, where's Bob Grazer? Where's Bob? There's Bob. Bob is with the city of Piqua. His committee works very hard to put this together. You did a great job, Bob. Thank you so much. Thank you. So we are so pleased to introduce to you our keynote speaker, Mr. Scott Holley. Scott is the president and co-owner of Eddy Line Kayaks, who is a leading manufacturer of kayaks, headquartered in Siloam Springs, Arkansas, with operations in Querétaro, Mexico. Scott joined Eddy Line after leading the management buyout of the company from the founders of the company, and I think he'll be talking about that in June of 2017. Eddy Line is the #1 reviewed kayak brand in the touring and recreational category, according to his consumer reviews at paddling.com. To further grow the paddle sport community, Scott also helped to create the Paddle Sport Trade Coalition, which is an industry association to help promote kayak and canoe companies. The mission of the organization is to promote paddle sport participation and to grow the paddle sport business community. And Eddy Line, which Scott is the president and CEO of, is a founding member of the PTC, and Scott is a board member. Prior to Eddy Line, Scott started his career in investment banking and consulting. He was a managing director and founding team member of Harkin Capital, which was an investment bank that helps clients raise capital to pursue investments in small growing companies. And it sounds like he found one from that experience. He found a kayak company. Along the way, Scott helped launch several leading investment partnerships in financial services, healthcare, and technology. Scott holds a BA in finance from the University of Utah, where he was the founding student director of the Lassonde Center for Entrepreneurship, and he holds an MBA with distinction from Harvard Business School. I just want to say, when I called Scott, it was like a cold call. Scott didn't know us from Adam. I don't know that he knew I'm sure I don't know that he had a great familiar with the Great Miami Riverway. And I don't want to put words in his mouth, but when I said, hey, we have 250 people who are going to be in the room in Piqua, would you be willing to come speak to us? He was so gracious, and he said to me, he said, you know, the work that you're all doing helps us, helps my industry, helps my company, helps my industry. He said, so I feel like I have a responsibility to be there in Piqua. So let's give him a big round of applause. Scott, thank you.
Oh, angled lectern, looking for a place to put some water down. This is precarious here. Over there. Hold tight, folks. Hey, there you go. All right. Wow, thank you all so much. And thank you, Dan, for that kind intro. And remind me to take all the investment banking part out of all of my bios next time. Hope you all forgive me for that part of my career. It was a cold call, but I'll tell you, I was actually in the middle at that moment of planning a trip to Ohio when the email landed, planning a trip with my local sales rep, Andrew Schlegel, who I know a ton of you here know, lives right down the road. And, you know, if there's one thing I've learned, it's that when the universe kind of lines up these things, you just kind of roll with it, right? So I've had the privilege of traveling through Ohio and Michigan and this last week and heading over to Indiana next week. And it's been just a really wonderful wonderful experience. And I've got to tell you, coming here into this room, it's true, I am a stranger and I don't know any of you, but there's this odd sense of familiarity where I look around and I feel like I do. And I think that that's just what happens when you get a group of people together who are all so passionate and such believers in the power of water and community and rivers. And I would say that I hope that all of you are taking this message of what you've done, what you've created, and what you've built, and looking for opportunities to share that far and wide. Because I'll tell you that there are a lot of communities who stand to benefit from the lessons that you all have to share with that. So it's really just been an absolute privilege to be here with all of you today and to continue to learn from you. So as Dan mentioned, when he and I first spoke, I spoke about how the mission of the Great Miami Riverway project was a perfect overlap to our mission as a company at Eddyline. And our purpose at Eddyline is to build quality crafts that inspire people to enjoy clean and healthy waterways. Our commitment is to strive daily to build the highest quality products with meticulous attention to detail, to support our customers with best-in-class service for their adventures, to innovate to improve the comfort, performance, and reliability of our products, and to be responsible citizens of our communities and our planet. And that's, I think that being here, I hope that I'm supporting our team in that last part of our commitment. Rivers truly are about connections, and they're about community. And healthy rivers connect people to themselves, to each other, and to the natural world. And I want to really hit on those 3 points today. And I'd like to share with you how I feel like Eddyline helps to accomplish that in our small role in making that happen. So first of all, let me tell you a little bit about where we've come from. Eddyline was founded in 1971 by Tom Dare. Tom Dare, a self-described hippie living in Boulder, Colorado, for whom business was a 4-letter word. But he lived on the Colorado River, and he really wanted his own kayak. And at that time, you couldn't go down to REI. So what he did was he actually found a catalog for a mold for a kayak in Europe. And then he got 4 of his friends and he said, hey, if you buy the materials and pay for the mold, I'll make the kayaks for us, and then we'll all be able to paddle on the Colorado. And so they all said yes. Well, you can imagine what happened at that point. He sets up in a garage and makes his 4 kayaks for him and his buddies. And then all of a sudden, someone on the river says, hey, that's a really cool kayak. Where'd you get it? Would you make me one? So a chance trip out to the Pacific Northwest and an introduction to Werner Fuhrer. If any of you are familiar with the history of paddle sports, you'll probably recognize not just the name of Tom Dare, but Werner, who his company and his family's company, Werner Paddles, led to Tom making a pivot from whitewater to sea kayaking. As he described it to me, he recognized that people who were buying sea kayaks in Seattle had a lot more money than dirtbag river kayakers in Colorado. So sometime between 71 and 73, business stopped becoming a 4-letter word, and he decided he'd rather make kayaks for people who could pay for them. So he moved out to Seattle and began manufacturing sea touring kayaks. The first Eddyline kayak was the WT 500, Werner Touring 500 for 500 centimeter kayak. That's also where he met the love of his life, Lisa Dare, who, all right, I'm not sure how to interpret that sign. But if another one falls, I might cut this short. Get over to have some beer with y'all. And Lisa really became his partner in life and in business. So the proximity to Boeing at the time, I know we've got a history of aviation here. There's actually a history of aviation through Eddieline as well. Being proximate to Boeing led to numerous innovations, the first of which was vacuum bagging fiberglass boats, which allowed the appropriate mix of resin and composite material for a lighter weight and higher strength in the material. And next was thermoplastics. So being able to move away from fiberglass and resin, which is labor intensive, dirty, and not super, at the time, super healthy for team members. They were able to move into thermoplastics, and starting with small components within the kayak, ultimately moved to creating the first fully thermoformed kayak. So for those who may not be aware, thermoforming, it's a very simple process that is deceptively complex, where you start with a extruded piece of plastic, you heat it in an oven and vacuum form it onto a mold. So Eddieline became the first to thermoform a kayak in the 90s, and by the early 2000s had switched completely over to that, creating an entirely new category within kayaks. Thermoforming allowed them to maintain the benefits of fiberglass, of low weight, great hydrodynamic designs, while lowering the price point and creating more accessibility and opening up the sport to new participants, and also the ability to produce quite a few more units as well. So after a short 46 years of running Eddieline, Tom and Lisa decided that it was time to retire, right about the same time that I was looking to move on from investment banking. And so a chance introduction to the Dares, and we started talking about what that might look like. And I was fortunate enough then in 2017 to join the company. So I joined the management team, who also bought into the company, and we continued to become a management-owned company. And after 46 years, rather, the company had its second group of ownership. As we joined, the category was really starting to take off. And so we expanded our production facility in Washington State. And our thesis at the time was that the core of the business was sound, that really what we needed to do was to continue to invest in production capacity to grow the ability to produce the units and service the demand. And our philosophy at the time was open door, and that we all would all share in the benefits of the growth. March of 2022, we all know what happened. The pandemic shut down, and uncertainty was followed by explosive growth within all outdoor recreation products, and kayaks were no exception. Our most popular model is a 12-foot long kayak. So when you're talking about 6 feet of social distancing, kayak was the perfect vehicle for the social distancing era. So capacity constraints at that time led us to continue to evaluate opportunities for expansion. And as Dan mentioned, we chose to expand into central Mexico in Querétaro. Geography is an interesting determinant, hidden variable in everything that goes on with us in all of our endeavors, and this was no exception. Querétaro is about 6,800 feet above sea level, and it's a desert plateau, so that means that there's very low humidity and relatively stable temperature, which for anyone who's worked in plastic really does not like humidity, and it doesn't like high temperature fluctuation, so it's a perfect place to extrude and form plastic. Because of that, a number of our suppliers, even prior to us moving there, had set up in this one industrial park, massive industrial park in central Mexico. And so, given that our supply chain was already located there, and given that there was a strong degree of talent in plastics engineering, we decided to set up a production location there. Right around the same time, we were looking at geography as well, and realizing that we needed distribution in the heartland. Our growth from a small kayak manufacturer in the Pacific Northwest to one of North America's leading brands really opened up a requirement that we have distribution in the center part of the country. So when I reached out to talk to our logistics professional and said, hey, we need to find some warehousing in the center of the country, or warehousing to service these markets, and they knew our routes. We asked them where we should be. They said, not too surprisingly, that you should look at Missouri, Arkansas, Tennessee. So I called a friend who was a commercial real estate broker in Arkansas. That same night, she was talking to a friend of hers who showed up all excited that his special order kayak had just arrived. Turns out that this individual had just bought an Eddy line. Furthermore, it turns out that this individual was responsible for building biking trails in Northwest Arkansas for the Walton Family Foundation. So I got a pretty excited phone call that evening and an invitation to come out to Bentonville. I had never spent time out in Arkansas, and what I saw absolutely blew me away. Not too dissimilar from what the experience I had this morning walking through downtown Pequot. Just that pleasant surprise and that excitement of finding a new place that goes beyond what your expectations are. So we ended up not only establishing a warehouse in Arkansas, but we ended up taking a strategic investment from Tom and Stuart Walton, third-generation Walmart heirs, who approached us with the opportunity for investment. They said, we only have a few requirements. One, we want to retire all your debt. Two, we never want to sell our shares. And three, we want you to use the money to build really cool products. Okay, right? That works for us, and they've been phenomenal partners. So with those moves, we were ready for consolidation. Unfortunately, we had to make the challenging business decision to close our location in Washington, and we've consolidated our operations around Arkansas and what we're building in Mexico. We're very proud of what we've built at Eddy Line. We are not the largest kayak brand in North America, but as Dan said, we are the most highly reviewed brand on paddling.com, and we think that that's a metric that counts. We are a 2-time Vendor of the Year nominee with REI, and we also appreciate that, the vote of confidence from our retail partners. So at the beginning, I talked about that I'd like to touch on how healthy water and healthy rivers in particular can create connections to ourselves, connections to each other, and then connections to the natural world. And I'd like to share just a couple of stories, well, 3 stories in particular that touch on how Eddy Line's been privileged to be a part of those levels of connection. So to start, I'd like to talk about how we connect with ourselves. When the pandemic hit in 2020, licensed mental health therapist Lisa Joe found that she couldn't meet indoors with her PTSD clients. As an EMDR practitioner, she was very concerned about what an inability to meet with her clients would mean for their critical mental health needs. She went home and told her husband about her dilemma, and he suggested that maybe they could go kayaking. She had just bought her kayak, and so they went and they bought a second Eddy Line kayak, and she moved her practice onto the water. So for those of you who may be familiar with EMDR, I apologize. I'll try and share a little bit about what it is, but it's not my forte by far. But basically, EMDR is a standard care treatment for PTSD. It stands for eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. Basically attempts to stimulate what the body does in rapid eye motion sleep when the eyes quickly move from left to right and back, which is believed to be involved in moving trauma content across the middle of the brain. So when I talked to Lisa about this experience, I said, well, you know, what did you find? And she was very quick to, you know, state that what she was about to share, that there was not scientific or research experience to buttress, but that she hopes that there will be at some point in the future. What she said is that for her clients, going through the EMDR process, especially starting a treatment within a clinical setting, was an exhausting process that often left her clients after initial sessions in a fetal state. What she said was that she was able to replicate the precise modalities on the water, but that the after effects were significantly less debilitating for her clients. She also found that clients who had been hesitant to come into an office in a clinical setting were much more willing to go into an open air setting on the water where they felt that they had more control over their ability to turn towards or away from her, where their eye contact was on a non-threatening horizon versus at a screen or at a therapist. And she's very excited about the possibility of continuing to research that and perhaps looking at other ways to help clients who are suffering from trauma and PTSD through therapies that involve being on the water. And I think even for those of us who are not mental health practitioners, what she says, at least to me, rings true. And we have all had those transcendental moments on the water where we've arrived at that flow state, and we know that we can connect with ourselves there. So it was a privilege to us to be able to have a small part to play in that story and to help day in and day out people connect with themselves on the water. Secondly is connecting with others. I really appreciate the question that came up earlier in the first panel and the comments that were made, Brad, about how to our great collective disfortune for much of our country's history, water has not been a place of joy for a large number of for groups of our population. For much of our country's history, people of color have not had the privilege of enjoying public waterways without running a real risk of being harassed or worse for attempting to do so. And this has had a cultural chilling effect that persists to this day, where participation rates in water sports for minorities lag far behind. I'll share our stats. REI tracks this, and they share this information with us. Within REI's membership, 24% of their members are people of color. 18% of their paddle sport buyers are people of color. And for Eddyline, that number is only 14%. We have a long, long way to go. And there is no easy one step, one size fits all. I really, truly appreciate everything that was shared in the second panel about how that's done. In 2022, the town of Anacortes, Washington, approached Eddyline to support a waterfront project by supplying kayaks for youth educational activities, particularly for an organization called VAMOS that introduces youth of Latin American origin or descent the basics of outdoor recreation. So Eddyline provided a donor match, and we supplied a free kayak for every kayak that was purchased by donors. Dozens of area youth are now escaping transgenerational story and recreating on the water safely with knowledgeable educators and without the fear of harassment. And we're hopeful that they then become messengers as well to take that story and to continue to train and to just by being on the water, show that paddle sport participation can and should be available to everybody. Finally, number 3, connecting with nature. Where the water meets the land is where you will find the planet's most unique and critical environments. Areas that, by the way, other than the silent sports, the paddle sports, you really cannot experience like you can on a kayak, a canoe, or a paddleboard. One example of these are the mangrove forests of Central America. It turns out that mangroves are as efficient as it gets when it comes to carbon sequestration, a critical component of stemming the tide of climate change. And it turns out that kayaks are the perfect tools to navigate mangrove forests. In the right hands, a kayak can become an indispensable tool in protecting and monitoring mangrove forest health, and in changing that economic calculus of developers who otherwise see worthless swamp that is better suited to steel and concrete resorts and hotels. So Eddyline partnered with the Clean Wave in Costa Rica and provided the organization again with a fleet of kayaks for their efforts. These kayaks monitor water health, they retrieve and dispose of trash, and they provide ecotourism opportunities. Just 2 kayaks preserved per year can help offset the carbon impact of my company. And every person who enjoys the stunning nature of the ecosystem then becomes a willing and capable agent of that continued defense and preservation. So I appreciate you all listening to those 3 examples of how Eddyline has been fortunate enough to be part of this opportunity to use water to help us all connect with ourselves, each other, and with nature. The Great Miami Riverway truly stands as a testament, you all stand as a testament to the power of connecting with ourselves, each other, and with nature. The vision of leaders here present and extending all the way back to the flood over 100 years ago shows what can happen when a community prioritizes and internalizes the value of building access to safe and healthy waterways. Community silos are broken down along with low-head dams. Water launches provide access to those moments of connections to our friends and neighbors and to our own psyches. And along the way, projects like the Great Miami Riverway stand as a beacon of possibility to other communities and as an invitation for participation from businesses and individuals alike. Thank you again so much for this invitation. I so appreciate it. Look forward to getting to know all of you a little bit more over at the beer garden here a little bit later. And I think that we had said that we'd do some Q&A. So is that still on the agenda? Yes. Okay, perfect. So thank you all again. Appreciate it. Yeah.
So can you talk about the trade association and maybe how that's going to maybe kind of interact with organizations like the Riverway and Tennessee, all of us?
Yeah, absolutely. So our industry is really interesting. It's actually a fairly small industry, and there have been several attempts over the last 20 years to form a trade association. The latest attempt really started about a year ago when we all convened in Bentonville, Arkansas in January. And as an outcome of that meeting where we all got together as brands to talk about the state of our industry, what was missing, how we could find opportunities to connect and collaborate, and what the goals of that collaboration should be, we ended up taking a vote to establish a formal trade organization, and we did so this last year. We formed a 501c6 called the Paddle Sport Trade Coalition, or PTC, and we expanded the membership from simply brands to include brands, retailers, sales reps, and importantly for a lot of you in this room, not-for-profit partnerships as well. So what we're really looking to do is to grow paddle sport participation and to find ways for cooperation within brands and retailers. But that first part of that mission of growing participation, that has to be bottom up. That has to be driven by what's happening here, what's happening in communities like this. So I'm really excited for that opportunity to, all of the things that I mentioned that Eddieline has done as a brand, we've looked one-off for partnerships, but having an organization like the PTC, I think that you're going to see over the coming years that you just get so much more operational leverage from having multiple brands, multiple retailers, multiple community organizations involved. What that ends up looking like, who knows? But what it could potentially look like is, for instance, Brewster, your Adventure's Edge? Adventure Crew. With Adventure Crew, Brewster can call up, cold call a list of 50 brands and get, brand support for, me with a boat and Aquabound with paddles and Astral with the PFD. Well, wouldn't it be great if there was a clearinghouse for all of those opportunities and a central point where we could say, hey, we're going to go ahead and bring this all together and have a streamlined way to kind of get that support and to get that additional reach. It's really important to our customer base. Our customer base share our values, and it was mentioned before, just about how, the why behind why brands and companies do that. Our paddlers want to be involved in these stories. They want to promote these stories. They want to see that the values that they have, that we share those. And so my hope is that the Paddle Sport Trade Coalition is able to make that happen. The other thing that we're really excited about is equality and access. These are big problems, and they're problems that are systemic, and they require a lot of coordination. They require a lot of ideas. And they require that you take something that's important and make it urgent, right? That's a lot of times that's been the problem of going after some of these big challenges, is everyone recognizes that it's a problem. Everyone sees the opportunity. Individual organizations, companies cannot really move the needle alone, and they're overwhelmed by other opportunities. So having an organization like this Trade Coalition that has series of events, workshops, symposium, trade shows, etc., we can make sure that we keep those important mission elements urgent as well, and keep those all top of mind. So I'm really excited about what the PTC is going to be able to do, but to date what we've done is organized, and a lot of people here have been involved in organizing, and you know how big of a lift that is, so more yet to come.
Any other questions? We have plenty of time.
Let's give Scott a round of applause.
Scott, thank you so much. That was great. Thanks for traveling to our little community here to present. It was really interesting, really interesting. Yep.
There's still more to come, and it's door praises, and what do we need to do? Be there, be present. So yes, we need you to be present for those. But first, it's time to welcome Mayor Michelle Collins from the city of Miamisburg. She has a special announcement about the 2025 Riverway Summit.
Thank you. Thank you.
They make me go right when you all are thirsty. So I promise not to keep you long because I'm thirsty too. Tell me when to go, Sarah. Well, as introduced, I'm Michelle Collins. I am the mayor of the city of Miamisburg, to me, the greatest city in the state of Ohio. Thank you to everyone who was a part of putting this summit together. It's always great every year, right? This was really fun. So thank you so much. Thank you to the city of Piqua for hosting, and the mayor and all of his staff for putting it together. The walking tour was great. Going to Crooked Handle is going to be greater. And just learning more about Piqua and this historic building we're standing in was fun. I will tell you, Dr. Burkhart, where'd you go? Thank you. One of my takeaways from this is finally I've learned that my beer drinking habit, oh, hold it, not habit, hobby is medically endorsed. Okay, thank you. Husband, did you hear that? Okay, thank you. So since I'm the only person in the way of you all having a beer, I do want to officially announce that next year's summit is going to be in the city of Miamisburg, and we're thrilled to host it. We can't wait to show off our historic downtown to each and every one of you. You don't have to wait until next year to visit us, though. We're always open for business. I'm here with our City Economic Development Director, Chris Fine, our Downtown Development Coordinator, who is trying to ignore me, Ben Trick, and our Ryan Davis, our Parks and Rec Director. They have been arm wrestling over who's going to plan next year's summit in the city. Oh, and Ryan won. Chris won. So, no, we look forward to hosting you. Mayor, I will make sure killer brownies are there. I will, yay. I will make sure that we all get the right to go to the hamburger wagon also. We, on May the 10th, are opening our Riverfront Park. Our Riverfront Park has been 20 years in the making. We've spent $20 million over the years. And no, is that too much? Less. In tearing down old homes and acquiring them and making the park what it is. But City Council allocated $5.5 million last year to finally complete the park. And we've been getting a steady stream of photos all day. It opens May the 10th. You're all invited. It's at 6 p.m. We're going to have a DJ and a silent disco and food. We have Adora down in Miamisburg. So we have almost 3 breweries. We have one getting ready to open on Main Street. So come down and enjoy all of that. There are lots of new things and shops to visit in Miamisburg. One thing that you learn with this coalition is it's very important to highlight the river in all of our cities and the bikeway. But that connection gets private buy-in. You get people who want to live in your city. You get people who want to own a business in your city or maybe move their company to your city because they have so many places to recreate and play when they get off work. So that's my spiel. Let's go have a beer, and Miamisburg will see you next year. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Collins. We've been to Lucky Star and Star City several times. They're both uniquely different. It's really great to go to a place like that. I didn't know that there was a third one opening up, so sounds terrible. So we hope that you all had as much fun as we did. Today's been a wonderful day, celebrating, recognizing, sharing, and it's going to continue at Crooked Handle. Jason is here, and one of the reasons that Jason came and put Crooked Handle here is because of Lock 9. So to your point about the river drawing people to bring their businesses there, so Jason Moore is the owner of Crooked Handle. Normally, he's the tallest guy in the room. So when you go to Crooked Handle, you can ask him about the beer that they brewed called Buzzbait, brewed specifically for this year's Great Miami Riverway Summit. Now, they have several other beer styles too, soft drinks, great food. The patio is pet friendly. It overlooks a beautiful section of the river, just spectacular. They recently celebrated their 1-year anniversary here in town and been a big part of the community already. Once more, thank you all that helped make the 17th annual Great Miami Riverway Summit happen. Putting on an event like this takes a lot. And a special thank you to the awesome planning committee for their tireless dedication. It surely could not have been done without the support of so many people, so many organizations. And we're not going to be able to list everybody because I'm going to forget somebody and then I'm going to have somebody mad at me. Thanks to the sponsors and exhibitors. Especially those that hung out all day.
As well as thank you for your attention, your attendance, participation today. You have all been a great audience. To quote somebody, great beer begins with great water. Did we mention door prizes? Got to be present to win. So I think you head over to Crooked Handle at this time. We're going to adjourn for you to have some great beer that started with great water. You going to join me in the end? No. One last word.
Oh, yep. Cheers.
Cheers.